Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Last Life Ever podcast. I'm Jillian Sidoti, and that
is Jeffrey Holst.
I can never get the pointing quite right, Jeffrey. So today on the podcast, we were fortunate to interview a gentleman by the name of Frank McKinney, who is a philanthrocapitalist and a real estate artist. That's what he does for a living. And we didn't talk to him about being a real estate artist. We talked to him about being homeless. And he wasn't homeless by choice. He was homeless. He wasn't homeless because he was poor. He was homeless by choice. He actually went out to see what it was like to be homeless. And in this interview, he talks to us about the experience. And Jeff, what was your biggest takeaway from that?
Well, there's so much, right? But the thing that was crazy is that the reason, the way he did it, right? So he was on a book tour because he's a major best-selling author, which is just crazy, right? Mm-hmm. So he's on this book tour and he just traded places with homeless people in each of the cities that he went to. So he spent 20 days or something like that in a row, living on the street, and really experiencing what it is to be homeless. And his perspective is the big thing, right? About humanizing the homeless people and understanding where they're coming from and recognizing that the majority of them are actually lucid. They're not, right. People that have severe mental illness issues. And I mean, granted, he did say like 25% of the people have mental illness issues. But the shocking part was that a significant proportion in his experience, after meeting 10,000 homeless people, so not a scientific study, certainly, but a significant sample size, he's saying 75% of them or more are lucid. They're able to converse, understand what's going on, and a significant proportion of them actually choosing to be homeless, which is another thing that really surprised me. So The interview is amazing. You guys are going to like it. So rather than listen to Jillian and I talk about the interview, how about we introduce Frank McKinney? So I'm super excited. Here's the interview.
Help me, my brother, can you lend me a hand as I walk through this land of confusion? If we give to each other, then there's nothing to take. Let's live life for the moment before it slips away.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Frank. Thanks for joining us.
Coming to you from my treehouse today.
That's so awesome. I've been so fortunate. I've been in that treehouse with my husband. We won an auction to go visit the treehouse. When I first met Frank, I knew I'm going to be so bold as I knew I loved him when I met him, because he just has this energy about him. And everything he does is towards a greater purpose, which is just something I aspire to be and to do and to emulate. So anyhow, we won an auction where we donated to your Caring House Foundation, which why don't you tell everybody what the Caring House Foundation does, which is not what we're here to talk about, but talk about that.
Not at all, but I do appreciate that. And we did have a wonderful time. Matter of fact, real quick, you know what I'll do? I'll spin it around so people believe that we really are in a treehouse. So there's the ocean. Can you see the ocean, or is it too bright?
No, it's good.
See it.
That's the ocean. And this is my treehouse. There's a bedroom, there's a sink, there's a shower, there's a toilet. It's 220 square feet. It's tiny. But this is where I wrote all 6 of my books and where I designed all the houses from. And we run the Caring House that you just asked about that builds self-sufficient villages in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, that being Haiti, where we built 27 villages in the last 17 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, so I donated to that cause, and I got to hang out with Frank for the day in his treehouse, and we had lunch. It was me and my husband. It was really, really fun. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. Today we're here to talk about, I saw a post.
Hey, Jillian, before you move on to the next topic, Frank, I want to tell you the section that you wrote for the Coronavirus Collective, where you talked about what you do in Haiti and your motivation and your inspirations, right, is fantastic. And I just wanted to thank you again for doing that. And I know our listeners and the readers of that book really appreciated it.
Can I, before we go on, I have to thank you guys for that book for a very simple reason, other than the impact it made on the people that read it. And if you haven't read it, Coronavirus Collective, please go out and get a copy. It inspired me to, and if you're on my list, Jillian, and you're also following me on social, tomorrow you'll see I have started my 7th book. And what really got me thinking was that chapter I wrote for your book. I'm taking some of that material, not all of it, and putting it into my 7th book. So thank you.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
True.
That's so great.
I can't tell you the name of the title and all that, but we're gonna tease a little bit of it tomorrow. And it was because of that said, you know what, Frank, it's time for another book.
No, definitely. I'll be tuning in for that tomorrow. And then the other thing I want to tell everybody before we really get into this is that if you're watching this live, you can comment below and we'll put your comments up or questions for Frank so that he can answer them. Because I'm sure I always have questions for Frank. This is my 3rd or 4th time interviewing him, and I still have questions. So I'm sure you're going to have questions too. And so what we're getting into today is I saw a post on Facebook that a couple of years ago, you did something quite incredible, which was you lived on the street as a homeless person, not because you were actually homeless, but because you wanted to experience the homeless lifestyle. I don't know if you would call it a lifestyle, but the plight of the homeless. Tell us what you exactly did.
It was a simple concept where my 4th or 5th book called The Tap had just come out, and I tour all my books. We do these big book tours, and rather than do TV stations and radio stations and your typical bookstore book tour, which we do a little of that, I wanted to go to homeless shelters and soup kitchens and food pantries and deliver the message that's found in The Tap, which is a biblical message: to whom much is entrusted, much is expected. And it was at a time where we were just coming out of the big crash of 2010, 2011. Things were starting to look a little bit better. But there's so many people out there 1 paycheck away from living on the streets. And there's also a lot of people on the streets that are 1 paycheck away from getting off of the streets. And so we dubbed the tour, instead of the Tap Tour, which is the name of the book, we dubbed it the Survival to Thrival Tour. And it was to move people from that survival mode into thrival mode. And the best way to do that, to me, was, and there were a number of pieces to this tour that were very unique, but let's say we stopped at a homeless shelter and there would be, 200 people in attendance. The homeless shelter's executive director knew before we got there that for every person that showed up, they got a $50 donation on the spot from my charity.
Wow.
So they were smart, and they would go out and they would recruit the homeless people, to come in and say, look, you come on, you have a free meal, hear Frank talk. They got the money. The homeless shelter got the money. And we had a contest where we would give everybody a ticket when they came in the door. And I would deliver this aspirational message to homeless people. We did 16 cities in 22 days. We covered over 5,000 miles. And one person was identified by the executive director to swap places with me at the end of my talk.
Oh, wow.
If that person was living under a bridge or in a park or actually in a shelter, you name it, in the woods, I swapped places with them. And not just, for fun, but it wasn't all that fun for me, but I wanted them to feel the dignity associated with staying in a nice hotel. The only rule I had for them was, yes, you could order room service. We would often set them up with a new set of, nice clothes. The only rule was, do not stay in your room all night. Put the nice clothes on, have the meal, room service, but get out and feel what it feels like to have that dignity back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I would sleep in, I slept under bridges and in park benches and in shelters to really feel what it was like to be homeless. And I did it for 20 consecutive nights in different cities across the country.
Did you have anybody with you, to check on your safety, or did you carry anything with you for your safety?
I had a videographer because we captured all the, if the media didn't pick up on it, we had a videographer that was there, and a driver, because I had a big tour bus, and there were some folks that actually slept on my tour bus while I slept in, the homeless shelter,
Mm-hmm.
homeless people. But no, I didn't feel the need. I didn't feel threatened. The only time I felt a little uneasy was when I was in an actual shelter with a bunch of, and typically they were homeless shelters for men, men only. And the local news had run a story about it, and we're all sitting around watching television, and there's the picture of the multi-million-dollar tour bus going by, and they look over and they say, "Wait, this is the guy," because I never really said that I was doing this for for a book tour. I would just show up as a homeless guy, and if I don't put a blow dryer in my hair and a flat iron and I let my beard grow, I can look like a homeless person real easy. So most of the time I fit in, but Jillian, a few times I didn't, and I had to, I endeared myself to the population in the homeless shelter, and everything was fine.
Oh, wow. Okay. So what was the worst place that you slept? Like, where was the place that there was no sleeping? You were just sitting there until morning came.
You would think it would be underneath. One night I slept underneath an overpass.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it was a concrete girder that I was sleeping on. I had a sleeping bag. It was really loud because the reverberation of the sound of the cars going underneath the overpass. But you would think that was because there was cockroaches climbing all over the place. It wasn't it, because I was alone. Like, I felt safe alone. I will tell you that there was one shelter in Pittsburgh that it was in a basement.
Mm.
It was completely void of any fire code. If that place caught on fire, everybody in that basement was going to die.
Mm.
And my bed was so close to the ceiling that if I had a bad dream, I would have knocked myself out. It was literally inches away from my nose. And so I couldn't wait kind of to get it. It smelled really bad. I was, I had to take a shower with a bunch of the guys. And I was kind of like, this might be, 10 days into it. I was already tired. I couldn't wait to get out of there. So at 6 a.m, that was the deal. I'd stay till 6 a.m. I go up to the top and I go knocking on the door at the top of the steps. It's locked because they locked the guys down there.
Oh my God. That doesn't even sound legal.
No, it was legal. It was warm. It was a place to stay, but they didn't want people coming and going during the night.
Uh-huh.
They locked you in. And again, like I said, if you got locked in, the fire happened, you'd be gone. Anyway, I, with my hair in a rat's nest and, looking really crappy and probably smelling just as bad, come knocking on the door at the top saying, it's time for me to go. And they had a shift change in the guard.
Oh, no.
They didn't know who I was. And I'm sitting there saying, no, I'm Frank McKinney. I'm an author. I'm on a book tour. A lot of homeless people have mental health issues. And this guy's saying, yeah, right. You're an author. You're on a book tour. Get back down there and breakfast will be served in an hour. They wouldn't let me out.
Oh my God.
They thought I was nuts. And
it
so
actually kind of sounds like a bad sitcom, actually.
Oh my God. And I was a little panicky, as that was the place where the guys weren't all that friendly toward me, especially in the shower. Well, they were maybe a little too friendly.
Oh dear.
And so I had smuggled my phone in there, and I couldn't even get service down in the basement. I finally found a place I could get a little service. I called my, the videographer, and who's one of our board members for Caring House Project, and I told him what was going on, and he came and kind of sprung me.
Oh my gosh. Holy moly. So he came and sprung you. Was the guard apologetic at all? Or?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I signed the book to him. I didn't hold it against him. He didn't know. He didn't know any better. But I tell you what, the biggest takeaway, Jillian, I've done 2 of these. I did one for my other thief book, my Christian romance novel. I did something very similar just last year. So there was 2 similar tours, and I have now had the privilege of meeting face to face, handshake to handshake before COVID, over 10,000 homeless people.
Wow.
So if I was in that tour, the first tour that we did, if we did 16 shelters and there were, 200 to 300 people at each shelter, do the math, that's 5,000 right there. And the last tour for my other thief book, that was another 5,000 people that we met. The one big takeaway that I want people to relate to, or 2 of them actually. One is, it wasn't an awareness tour. I wasn't there to make people aware of homelessness. Who wasn't aware of homelessness? This was an action tour. That's why we called it the Survival to Thrival Tour. Almost every city media covered it. And I got to, share the plight of the homeless people, show me giving checks without red tape right there to the homeless shelter directors, because my God, if they run out of money, where do these people go?
Right.
But the biggest thing I would ask people to do, when you're out there, because every city has homeless people in it. Let's say there were 10,000 people I met. I bet, or 100 people, I bet 80 out of 100, 75 out of 100, Jillian, were lucid, were
totally
educated.
with it. Ready?
They were with it. It wasn't the drug abuse or alcoholism that caused homelessness. It was the homelessness that caused the drug abuse and the alcoholism.
Mm-hmm.
It's a misconception. And that most of the people think most homeless people are the type that sit there and talk to the light post, that they all have mental health issues. A lot of them have this mental health. But Jillian, 75% of them are like you and me. They're highly educated, that one paycheck away from getting off the streets and back into being a productive citizen of society. I can't tell you how many in-depth conversations I had with people who were college graduates, who had one set of unfortunate circumstances follow the other until they finally ended up in the street. And so what I do now, and I do this on a regular basis, even here in South Florida, I go out of my way to find the invisible, to find the downtrodden, to find the people that society completely throws away. And yes, I'll give them money or whatever, but the most important thing you can do is ask them their name.
Oh, wow.
Tell me your name. Tell me a little bit about your story.
Wow.
And to drive the point home, so let's pretend like, remember, when I would go into a homeless shelter of 300 people and give this aspirational talk, like a little half-hour talk, we would pass out tickets, similar to something you'd get at a state fair or something. And on that ticket at the end, I would pull out winners, multiple winners, and you had a choice, Jillian, of a book, like a tap book, a signed copy of my book. I actually brought all my other books, so you could get a book. You could get gift cards to Target or to a grocery store. You could get cash. And it was one other thing. What was the other thing? No, maybe it was those three. And I can't tell you, you would think they would all take the cash. Not the case. Many of them took books. They'd rather have a tour of the tour bus. They'd rather take my phone number and have me help them, out of their situation.
Wow.
Not everybody reaches for the cash. So by getting to know them and asking their name and their story, it humanizes them.
Mm-hmm.
And there really wasn't. I mean, in DC, I went to a shelter there was over 200 people there. 195 were Black men. I was this white guy up in front of them giving this talk on aspiration. And it was amazing almost immediately how endearing we became to each other. Wow. Because I think they sense my authenticity. So if you're out there and you see homeless people, don't judge. Please don't judge. And when I say don't judge, if you could carry what I had insist people that do or encourage people to do, carry gift cards like $5 or $10, probably $5 better, to McDonald's, because they're not going to sell that for drugs.
Yeah.
They're going to use it. They're going to, if you don't have it, a couple dollars, not everybody's going to use that money for drugs.
So that you just answered the question I was going to ask, because I was actually going to admit something I'm really not super proud of. But I have often not given to the people who are holding signs in my grocery store lot. And the reason being is because I don't want to encourage it to be a bed ground, for that kind of behavior where people are coming in and begging for money. Because a lot of times it's, moms with their children in the car at the gas pump, and they get scared and they just give the person who's asking them for money whatever they can just to get them to go away. But then it breeds a problem. And so what I'm hearing you say is, if you just keep a couple of gift cards in your car, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, then you solve that problem. You don't have to give them cash. You don't have to give them money. You can give them something to eat, essentially.
A $5 gift card from McDonald's. And I'll tell you, I mean, not to prejudice anybody against the anticipated result, but there will be times when they'll throw that gift card back in your face. Mm-hmm. I don't want that. Then it's clear what they want the money for. Then you kind of you found them out, right?
Right.
I mean, you're not the person I'm going to help. The other thing I want you to understand is let's say take that same 100 people that I would have met, and 80 of them or 75 of them being very lucid. Most of those 75 prefer to be homeless. They do not want an electric bill or a light bill. They want to live off the grid. Many of those people were extremely happy individuals, joyful individuals. So we weren't there. And again, I actually go to the local homeless shelters here to consult with some of the folks, the administrators, to say, look, I know where these people are staying, under the bridges and in the woods. They've got a camp set up. They've got a tent there. They've got their fire. They've got their food. They'd probably get Social Security. Those are not the people that want to be helped, nor should they be helped. Because they have what most of us listening to this don't have. They have found happiness.
Isn't that
homeless doesn't mean that they're not happy. So our Caring House Project Foundation that we talked about a minute ago, 15% of our donors' dollars stay local. When I say local, I say stay in the United States. They don't all go to building villages in Haiti to help domestic homeless people who I might get a call from a rabbi or a priest saying, look, Frank, there's a family living in their car showering on the beach.
Okay.
Can you help them?
They need help. Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of red tape. So, I can't, in my line of work, I have to go through so much red tape. So we quickly determine if it's a scam. If it's not a scam, then we provide emergency shelter in hotels that we have deals with. And if they really get through that process with my real estate connections, we will provide first, last, and security.
Oh, wow.
Because that's all it takes. Just
a
little bit. Maybe just first and last, and they'll contribute security because they have a little bit of money. And these are families, or these are people that are wanting to get off the street. Of those 100 people, minus the non-lucid ones, so we got 75. Of those 75, 60 want to stay on the street. They're happy living on the street. It's those other, so it's 15% of the homeless population in the United States, which I believe when you watch that video, I think it was like 2 or 3 or I don't remember, 3%, 2 million people or something like that were homeless or living on somebody's couch. So 15% of those people really are the ones that want to live somewhere other than the street. That's what these programs should be helping.
So you're saying that the trick really is to find the people that are in that situation that really don't want to be there. And I mean, obviously helping people that have mental disabilities is important too, because those people probably would be better off not being on the street. But you're saying a significant proportion of the 100 people, 60% or so, really that's where they're choosing to be there.
Yes. And the other part about that is, if you have, that's why these shelters are so critical, because they don't just provide food and a place to stay. Like you were saying, they will find who really needs the mental health assistance, and they'll have mental health professionals come and help these people. That is critical. And while they may be staying on the street and they may know no other way but to be on the street, there is some form of assistance for every homeless person. It's just not shelter. Most people think we need to shelter all these, especially if you're living, like, for example, in South Florida. I mean, I've been to homeless camps. I've traveled with the cops in the front seat of the cars and taken them to these homeless camps. It's not a bad setup.
So it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I grew up in Michigan, and there was not a lot of homeless people. I grew up in a suburb in a sort of, well-to-do place, and there weren't a tremendous number of homeless people, but I worked at a 7-Eleven for a number of years. There was one guy that came in somewhat regularly that was very obviously choosing to be homeless, right? He always had a little bit of money. He would buy himself a coffee almost every morning, but he carried all of his stuff on his back, and I got kind of friendly with him. His name was Dave. And there was a lot of people around town that knew him. He was sort of like our one homeless person, in this community. And Dave, one day I asked him, I said, Dave, why don't you just walk to South Florida? I said, like, it's cold here. Like, we have snow, right? It's winter's coming up. And he said, I'm from here. This is where I live.
Yeah.
And I was that's always sad. The sad part about this is he later froze to death under a viaduct, which is really sad, obviously. And this is, 20 years ago, and it still bothers me. But he chose that, right? I mean, and Dave, what he seemed like you said, he seemed to honestly want to live that lifestyle. And he always had more money at the beginning of the month. So I suspect he did have Social Security. I suspect that's exactly what was going on, because we wouldn't see him the last week of the month usually. And he would even like come in sometimes and bring sandwiches to people and stuff. He was just a nice guy that chose to live under a viaduct. And to me, that's very strange, and I don't understand it, but I guess maybe you do.
You know what? I have to say, I do understand it. You said it, Frank. You don't have a water bill. You don't have an electric bill. You got a tent. And I mean, outside of my office once, there was a whole tent city. The sheriff's department came and made it bred a lot of crime. Don't get me wrong. My office actually got broken into. So did my car. So I didn't like having it there, but it looked very pleasant. People went to, and we're in Southern California, so we don't have the elements the same way. But I know you don't get it, Jeff, but I understand it to a certain extent. It seems like there's a little bit of freedom in it.
I'm not minimizing that, because I like having my bills paid, but I'd like not having bills even more. Right? That'd be really nice if everything was just free. You still have to wonder, though. Like, I mean, it's hard to imagine, especially somebody like Dave, right, who chose to live in a cold environment. There had to be a lot of cold nights, and because there wasn't a lot of homeless in Jenison, Michigan, there weren't homeless shelters. There weren't other options. He didn't, he by choosing to stay there. And he could have gone 20 miles away to the city and found a shelter, but he chose to stay there where he was.
Yeah.
And, there's consequences to that sort of thing, and it's hard for me to understand.
Right.
Like a guy like, you said his name was Dave.
Yeah.
There are some antisocial issues that they just don't, they won't go to a shelter. They do have a form of income. And where people like that, where a shelter can come in real handy, a good one, and I've seen this happen dozens of times, is a lot of these people that are homeless are entitled to disability or Social Security or some of Medicare or Medicaid, and the shelters will set them up so that they do have some form of income. And then if they choose from there to get off the street, they might have enough to get their own place, and they'll do it. They'll do it. And a shelter is not meant to be a permanent residence. And I just felt that the quicker you can humanize these individuals, because as a society, we throw them away. We look the other way. We pay no attention. And that's something that I experienced as a fake homeless person. I was discriminated against. I was, yelled at. And I would even help, because I'm pretty good at marketing. I would even help them make their little signs, Jillian.
Oh God, what did they say? Good Lord.
They were really colorful. What was one of the ones that I wanted to bet my videographer, who's really a good friend of mine. He's gone on almost all my book tours. His name's Juan Restrepo. I wanted to bet him that I could earn X amount of dollars. Like, I wanted to have a contest at a stoplight based upon my sign. Even though I look like crap, based upon my sign, and writing well and having it, legible, that I could make $100 a day.
Oh my gosh. Did you do it or no?
I didn't do it. He didn't think it was a good idea. It's really patronizing.
Yeah. Well, so right. I mean, if you don't need the money, asking people to give you money, you have to wonder if that's the right choice. But so I had in my former life, I was a bankruptcy attorney, and I had one client. I don't think I ever told you this either, Jillian, that I came into my office, and he clearly knew he was a factory worker. The factory he worked for was a GM plant, had gone out of business. And he needed to file bankruptcy. He was in a bad spot. And he didn't have any money. And the problem with bankruptcy, of course, is you have to collect the money up front. And I said to him, hey, it's going to be $1,500, which was a lot of money. This is 10 years ago, and it's a lot of money now, but it was a lot of money in the middle of the Great Recession for an unemployed person to come up with. And he came back like 2 days later with $1,500, and he paid me in ones and fives. And I asked him about it, and he literally did stand on a street corner with a sign that said, I need $1,500 to pay my bankruptcy.
There you go.
He showed me the sign, and he earned $1,500 in a weekend.
Yep.
Good for him.
Yeah, no, I thought that was an impressive
something
innovation.
creative like that will work. And I would also often see women standing on the corners, asking for money, and they would do a lot better than the men.
Yeah, we have a lot of women and children who, in my area, there's a couple of, they call them gypsies. I don't know how true that is, but women who stand out there with their small children looking for money in various parking lots. I struggle. I'm honest. I struggle with it. I struggle with it a lot because I work at the local food bank. I know what you have to do to get into the food bank and get money. We have emergency food. We have emergency gift cards. If you have a need, I also know where the shelter is and where you can get, shelter. So and maybe my annoyance is misplaced, but I get annoyed by this. I get annoyed by the women who use their children in this manner. And that's judgmental Jillian right there, right? And I get annoyed by the people who give to them because I feel like they're encouraging them to continue this. Yeah. And I don't know what the answer is. Do you? No, I'm dead serious. Do you?
No, the answer really to me is take the time to speak to the woman. Mm-hmm. Don't offer money right away, because I'll talk to one. If I get a sense that they've got a drug habit, or they're just trying to rip me off, not rip me off, but if I just did a bad sense, then maybe $1 is all they'll get. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But if somebody really, I'm a pretty good judge of these homeless people. If it hits me right, they'll get a couple gift cards or a $20 bill or something. Right. Some people truly, like I said, meeting so many of them that were so close to being off the street.
Right.
I wanted to help that happen.
Right. So do you recommend giving handouts to homeless? And I think you've answered this, is that you take a few minutes to talk to him and have a collection of gift cards to find out what somebody really needs.
Yep. And if you do get a bad vibe, then it is okay to say, you know what, I'm just going to pray for you. That's all I really have for you today. Mm-hmm. Because I agree that I'm there to, I don't want to create a welfare. I can't stand the welfare mentality. A welfare system's fine, but the mentality is very toxic. And a lot of those folks, I want to help. I'm a capitalist. I'm a free enterprise. I want to get them off the street. I don't want the government to have to support them. Jillian, it's one of the reasons, and Jeff, that we're over in Haiti, because there are no social service programs in Haiti to help.
Right.
And I don't want there to be, because they become a way of life. They become another needle in the arm. They become addictive, and it can ruin a society. That's a whole different podcast to talk about entitlement mentality versus entitlement system. And that's why I feel in Haiti the impact is extremely pure. That's why a very small percentage of our donors' dollars stay domestic, and the rest, because you've heard me say it before, in business, you have an ROI, return on investment. I'm keen on, and we've coined the phrase return on donation, ROD. How far can I stretch my donor's dollar? And you contributed to our Haiti COVID campaign, where I could buy a hand washing station for a whole village for $50.
It's crazy.
Wow.
It's amazing though. But actually, that's something that's, I've never thought of it as a return on donation, but I do think about donating when I do my personal charity. I try to think about where those dollars will be used the best possible way. And so a lot of times I am actually donating to missionary families that I know them personally and I know what they're doing. And that might be domestic, it might be international. And lately we've been doing this thing called the Kind Morning, something that Jillian and I came up with for Last Life Ever, where people are supposed to do a random act of kindness every day. And my random act of kindness almost every day has been to reach out to someone I've met in my travels and send them a small amount of money. Western Union, $10, $20. Yeah. And I know, like the guy I was talking to, he's been messaging me like every day, thanking me. It makes such a huge difference to him. He's a Tanzanian safari guide. Like there's no safaris going on right now. Like he makes $20 a day when he works.
Wow.
There's, when you live on $20 a day, you don't have a social safety net to fall back on, then you're in trouble when there's no tourism.
Right.
And I know there are people that are even in worse shape than him, but I don't know those people. And so that's, I think, what you're saying by getting to know these homeless folks, you're getting to know them on a level to discern whether it's a good investment of your dollars.
right.
give it to them or not.
The other thing I try to do to surprise them is take a contrarian approach. And the contrarian approach is how does the rest of society, the other 99 other non-Frank McKinneys, how do they react to the same person? And it's usually antagonistically. We turn the other way. We roll up our window. Sometimes I do the exact opposite. Like I approach them and I want them, what do you need today? I am here to help you. I think you're the most beautiful person in the world. And that outfits you're wearing, I had one just like it when I was a teenager. Let's go in here and let's get a cup of coffee. I mean, I completely go the opposite direction of what most other people do. And then maybe they don't lose faith in humanity. Like if there's one Frank McKinney out there treat me like this, there's got to be another. God bless you, Frank.
What a good example for your daughter, and I'm going to start doing this because I want my kids to see this. But we've kept you long enough, and I'm going to start crying because that was amazing. That last part right there was amazing. So where is it? Caringhouse.org?
Caring House, CHPF, Caring House Project Foundation, but you use the 4 letters CHPF, F is in Frank.org, and you can see the impact that we're having in Haiti. You can, there's videos you can watch. You can actually watch this Home Survival to Thrival tour video.
PF actually, Jillian.
Oh,
PH.
Yeah.
PF.
Yeah.
I guess I had a chemistry on the mind.
Yeah.
PH.
But Frank, well, Jillian's figuring that out. There we go. All right, good. Really, really appreciate you coming on. And like I said, the chapter you wrote in the Coronavirus Collective about aspiration and aspiring, like you talked about your charity you talked about how you looked at it like Robin Hood. And I thought that was so interesting, like aspiring to be like someone who's a fictional character, right? Yeah. And I think that's really brilliant because I have lots of role models in my life, people that I look up to and think about, some alive, some dead, but I never once thought I should be like Robin Hood or I should be like, whatever fictional person. And I thought that was really, really cool. And then you live your life like that, right? You go out and, like you said, take from the rich by selling them expensive houses and then using that money to feed poor people and give money to homeless people. It's amazing.
You got to do me a favor. You've got, and I can't do it now. It's just too early. You got to have me back so I can talk about this new book.
100% will.
Oh my God!
I have no issue.
We would be. That's an honor for us, not for you. That's awesome for us.
No, we definitely will do it.
I'm dying to jump into it right now, but I can't. Once I have more, I will provide you with plenty of talking points. But this is going to be. It's going to be the best one I've ever written, and it's really timely.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, Jeff, we don't want to keep you anymore, Frank, but thank you so much. Our guest today was Frank McKinney. Jeff, any parting words?
I'm Jeff. That's Frank. You're Jillian, and we're just encouraging you to live the very best version of your last life ever. Go! Wow, that was amazing. I'm so happy that we had Frank on the show.
I am too, and I feel like I missed a question, which I'm going to have to text him, or next time he comes on, I'm going to have to ask him.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? As soon as we got off the air, which, obviously was 1 second ago because this is recorded all at the same time. As soon as we got off the air, we were talking to Frank, and he was like, you guys have to ask me back. He's got a new book coming out and he wants to talk about that book. So you're going to get another chance.
I am.
And that's super exciting. So
I want to know, that thing about him letting, not letting, but offering the opportunity for a homeless person in each city to stay in a nice hotel and dress up nice and all that. I want to know if that impacted any of them, if it made a permanent impact on any of them. And I just can't believe I was so enthralled with the whole conversation and feeling my own personal, I always have to make it about Jillian. So feeling my own personal guilt about how I've treated homeless people.
Oh, no, I felt the same way, actually. So, I didn't say it because you were saying it and I didn't want to just repeat what you were saying, but I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, I remember somebody just the other day, like maybe in the last week, stopping on the side of the road and kind of walking up to my window and just kind of looking down at my phone and pretending like I had something really important I had to do at that stoplight, which, I'm sure this homeless person unless they were crazy, which apparently they're not, according to Frank, right?
Yeah.
Unless they had some like mental illness issues, they knew I was just avoiding eye contact because I didn't want to talk to them. And I was thinking, man, that is just wrong. Like, even if I didn't want to give that person money, I could have at least smiled, right? Like, you have to recognize that these people are people. It's not, and it might be a choice in some cases, but it's not always, and you don't know.
And even if it is a choice,
there's still people.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. I mean, but if it's a choice, you can kind of feel a little less bad, right? Like, you can kind of go, well, I don't have to give them money. They're choosing to live in this life. But the truth is, there's probably some self-selection going on. I think most of the people choosing to be on the street probably aren't standing on street corners trying to get money either. Maybe they are. Maybe they aren't.
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
I have no way to know. I guess we might have to do a little last life ever living homeless experiment, and then we'll see. So, Jillian, you go first.
Oh, on my joke? What?
No, you go first on living homeless.
I was like, wait, we just got to the
30 days on the street and see how that goes, and then report back to us.
No.
See, that right there is why Frank is so amazing, because we got that. I can't do it. I don't want to live under under a viaduct or something, or like or over 1 inch from the ceiling in a homeless shelter. I mean, that sounded terrible. And then to be locked in. The
locked in part to me was
terrifying, right?
Was absolutely frightening. But I will say this, you know what? I wouldn't do it, not because I can't brave being under an underpass for a night or something like that. It's because I'm a woman, is why I wouldn't do it. And I know there's a lot of women out there that are homeless, so God, like, I'm going to say an extra prayer for them tonight, and I'm going to do something about this. I'm just not going to sit and let this be.
It would be interesting to know if the people so Frank, of course, his exposure was mainly towards homeless men because he's staying in homeless shelters and he's going to men's shelters and stuff, which is completely understandable because he's a man and that's the way it works.
Right.
But it would be interesting to know if the same proportion of people choosing to be homeless are female. Like, I mean, first of all, we already know just from like raw numbers, I think that there are less female homeless people than there are male homeless people. From my own reading, I could be way off on that, but that's just sort of how I feel about it and what I've read. So the question is, I mean, is that because less females choose to be homeless? Maybe because it's a little less safe for them. It's just an interesting question, but listen, we're never going to know the answer to that. So that's just another thing to put on the questions to ask Frank next time he comes on, because he knows way more about it than us. So before we wrap up here, Jillian, how's your week going?
It's going well. It's only Monday, so I hope it's
well.
Going
how
did
right. Last week go then? Let's go.
It's going good. I can't complain. I mean, the kids are doing better. Like, they're healthy now. I can say they started school. We started homeschooling, which is a whole new experience for us.
Do they hate their teacher yet?
We're doing okay. I have to say it's going better than expected. And I am looking forward to the rest of the year and seeing how it turns out. We're thinking about taking another trip to like somewhere like Yosemite, the great outdoors, getting them some space and air. I feel bad for those who can't do something like that, drive somewhere.
Yosemite is an amazing place. Definitely recommend it, although maybe a bit crowded. One of our fellow last lifers was just in the Smoky Mountains and said it was packed full of people. So people are getting out there and doing those things now.
Yosemite you have to get a ticket to get in weeks in advance. So you can't just go to Yosemite. You have to actually get a car ticket. So they're limiting how many people can go there.
Right, because Yosemite was on buses only for a number of years. Mm-hmm. And now they're saying, well, to control traffic, we're just going to allow a certain number of people to drive it, because the buses, frankly, aren't a good option right now.
Right. No.
We don't want to put people on top of each other in a small bus.
Right. So, yeah. So I don't know. We'll see if that happens.
Zion used to be buses only, but it hasn't been as busy. And so you were just there and you were able to drive into the canyon.
I was able to drive to Zion. I couldn't go up to the scenic route. You do have to go on a bus for the scenic route, and they only allow so many people, so they only have so many tickets. So
makes sense.
Yeah. So, I'm starting to feel very, very sad about the current situation. I've always kind of been in my head about it, in my own head, in my own space, about what the situation is with the pandemic, because I had children who were sick and I had other things going on in my life. And so I wasn't very focused on other people's situation, I guess is the best way to put it. And now I'm starting to really feel,
there's a lot of people that are hurting, right? I mean, I think that's what you're saying.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
And we've said this before on early shows. Before, when your kids hadn't been sick for 10 weeks and we were in our first week of the show, and your kids were, you were, maybe a little sick, but they weren't even that bad yet, really, right? Like you thought it was going to be kind of over in a little bit. We talked about how it's just so much easier for us, right, than it is for a lot of people in the world. I mean, and we were just talking with Frank actually off the air about some of the people that, are running missions that wrote chapters for the Coronavirus Collective, and how, things like Mexico, the numbers are really bad. And there's people that are like, frankly, don't have access to good medical care, and they don't have access to, ways to get away from crowds, right? Like if you live in some of these developing world nations, like people are on top of each other, right? There's no, like when we were talking to Zora last week about Cairo, it's amazing to me that they're not just loaded with coronavirus there. So there's definitely people that have way bigger challenges than us, but that doesn't minimize our own.
I don't think it minimizes our own challenges. Certainly, God knows I've certainly had my own challenges. Not just with the coronavirus, but other things in my life in the last several months. And I don't mean to be cryptic to the audience, but we all have stuff, right? People have good stuff and bad stuff that happen to them all the time. But the point is, we all deal with it, and it's tough. And it's tough regardless of whether you're poor or whether you're not poor. It's tough regardless of whether you actually are sick or someone you know is sick, or you don't know anyone that's sick. Because it's uncertainty, and I think that's the thing that's the hardest to deal with, is you just don't know. Like, when is this going to be over? What is it going to look like when it's over? Are we going to be wearing masks 5 years from now? The answer is maybe. I just don't know. And that uncertainty is very disturbing. But you know what? That is not what we're here to talk about today. So I'm going to change the topic just a little bit. Thank you.
I'm going to tell you about something really fun. This
good.
banana slicer.
Oh my God.
This is a gift that Jillian sent me in the mail. Thank you, Jillian,
for the banana slicer again.
Yes. Well, it was sitting in front of me still because I haven't sliced any bananas. I apologize for that.
This is what we're gonna do then. If you have the banana slicer there and it's all ready to go, then we're gonna read a couple of reviews. We'll read one or two.
All right,
reviews.
fair enough.
Instead of our jokes, we'll read a review.
That makes perfect sense to me. But don't go searching for hours for a ninja joke. Okay?
No, I won't. I'm gonna pick one.
Just pick one of the. Don't even read the reviews. Read the question and answers, because I think they're even better than the reviews.
You read the question and answers. I'll read one review.
All right, you read the review. I'm gonna go look for right now. I'm gonna go look for the Amazon. Yeah, okay. I gotta find Amazon and all that. I didn't know I was gonna have to do the banana. What is it? It's the Hutzler.
Yeah, by the way, Hutzler, guys, 571 banana slicer.
Yeah. So by the way, guys, if you want to read more of these hilarious reviews and questions, you definitely want to go to the Hutzler 571 banana slicer. And it turns out there's actually quite a few different banana slicers, so you have to turn it Hutzler 571.
You'll only get the 571 model. I mean,
for sure. I mean, you don't want any.
Don't be ridiculous. All right, so here's a review, and the title is "Perfect If You Want to Get Fired." It's a 1-star review. I was sitting on the couch and my doorbell rang. I leapt off the sofa and ran to the store screaming, "My banana slicer!" I opened the package and immediately snatched a banana to slice. Without instructions included. I did not.
You can't even read it.
I did not realize I had to peel the banana first. It was a gooey mess and I had to grab another. This time I peeled it, but my banana was too small. It didn't fit the whole slicer. I went to Walmart customer service. Do you have any giant bananas? I questioned. The attendant turned away. I think he was laughing. He called for another attendant. They went to the back and brought out the biggest bananas I've ever seen. I went home with the bananas I peeled the bananas and used the banana slicer. It was so satisfying to cut the bananas. I did it all day and forgot to go to work. I got a call from my boss. You're fired, he screamed into the phone. I cried. I'm no longer Jake from State Farm. I am now just Jake.
Wow. So I don't believe that was really from Jake at State Farm. I'm just going to go out on a limb because he's still doing commercials. But I mean, that is pretty funny stuff. But listen to this. So this is like the third or fourth question down. There's tons of good questions like, can this be used on cucumbers? And like, you know, I'm concerned, right? You know, like one, like here's a super quick one. I'm going to read two actually. So I bought one of these the other day and I set it down on my kitchen on the counter. Now the bananas have stopped talking to me. Should I be concerned? And the answer is be very concerned. My bananas did the same thing. I figured it would pass, but 2 days later, the 897H human slicer arrived.
Oh my God.
So that's not even my favorite one though. And this is really important because you said there was only one version, right? The 571. But
Right.
It turns out if you live in Europe, and some of our listeners and some of our viewers might live in Europe, they might actually want a metric version, right? So the question is there a metric version? My mom lives in Europe and I don't want to send her one that won't work in her country, right? So this is the answer. I ran into the same problem with my friend who is a banana freak overseas. Though Hutzler does have a metric version of the 571, you first have to convert the name from 571 to its metric name. Adding to the confusion of the process is that most people don't know that the real name of the Hutzler 571 is actually the Hutzler .571 because there was a typo in the patent process when they just went with what they had. So armed with that information, you can convert 0.571 inches into the metric version, which comes out to 1.4503 centimeters. So the metric version of this device is actually called the Hutzler 1.4503. Unfortunately, the 1.4503 has been on back order for over a year now. So everything I just told you is moot. And as an option, you can do what I ended up doing, which is send bananas to Europe from America.
and oh my
Because
God.
that way they'll work because they're non.
Then the banana slicer.
Yeah.
So you just want to ship bananas.
Just ship the bananas since the banana slicer is on back order in Europe.
I think we got to wrap this up. What do you
I think that's probably true. If anyone's still listening, just don't anymore. Just stop now. It's time. It's over. It's done. Just remember to live the very best version of your last life ever.
Never gonna take my freedom. You're never gonna